Atomfall, released March of 2025, available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation platforms, retailing for $49.99 on PC and $59.99 on PlayStation and Xbox platforms. Developed by Rebellion, most known for their Sniper Elite series, Atomfall is a big departure from their previous work, as it is an open-world game taking place in the shadow of some kind of horrible catastrophe in England. In the late 50s, something the locals refer to as an atom plant had some kind of terrible disaster, so an area was quarantined off around this atom plant. And the people in the quarantine zone have not taken things very well. Some are living miserably under martial law. Some have become bandits. Some have reverted to a kind of medieval lifestyle. And still others are struck with a mysterious ailment, and it should be fairly obvious that whatever disaster happened has something to do with this mysterious ailment. And probably the odd glowing plant life you see here and there. Though I won't spoil exactly what's going on here. The game is broken up into several large areas, rather than having one continuous area. And within each of these areas, there are caves and bunkers and what have you to explore, as exploration is a big part of this game. In fact, your character grows stronger from finding certain things, rather than from combat. Meaning that whenever possible, combat should be avoided. But that, of course, is not always possible. If you're looking to improve your character, you will need to find training stimulants. They are often found in barred cases, though they can sometimes be found other places. Each improvement has a set number of stimulants that are required. Early on, you'll notice there's many upgrades that you can't see yet. That is because you need to unlock them with things like training manuals, which can be found out in the world, or sometimes bartered with NPCs for. But fair warning, anything you see that can be bartered for, you can find out in the world if you look hard enough. And it is true bartering, as there is no money equivalent in this world. Even though we're in a quarantined part of England, so one would think pounds would still have some value there. But weirdly, it never comes up. But what does come up are lots of NPCs that have lots of ideas of how to escape the quarantine.
Really? Well, you're not the first amnesiac I've seen since things went awry.
Of power signals, especially useful for bypassing old security systems.
For all the weight that carries now.
All of which will assure you that they have the only plan to get out, and that you can completely trust them. But contrary to that, there is a mysterious voice on the various phones you find that will tell you not to trust any of these people.
This is the operator. Do you require my assistance? This place does not yield its secrets easily. The truth lies hidden.
Who exactly that is, and how they're making the phones work when everyone you mention it to tells you the phones haven't worked in years in the quarantine, is something that doesn't seem to have an actual answer anywhere in the game. And there are times when you could potentially answer a phone near an NPC, but they don't comment on how odd that is. As you explore, you will find a lot of random junk that you can pick up. If it's not consumable or a bullet, it's something that's used in the game's crafting. Early on, you can make bandages to heal yourself. As you play, you can find recipes that will allow you to make poison antidotes, treatments for radiation, and other various useful items. If you find the right manual and train the right skill, you can even upgrade firearms through crafting, as most of what you find will be rusty, which lowers their power, accuracy, range. But taking two rusty versions of a gun and a few other items, gun oil, etc., you can create a stock version of that gun, which is a vast improvement. And with two stock versions of a gun, you can actually upgrade to a pristine version, which at the very least will do more damage and sometimes other things. Early on, you will probably not use guns that much, as ammo is scarce at the beginning. But as you delve deeper into certain places, ammo becomes more commonplace. And you'll need it, as most enemies do respawn when you move between the zones, which is another fine reason to avoid combat to begin with. I think the enemies respawning is to compensate for the fact there is no fast travel in this game. And without having the enemies respawn, travel would get very boring very quickly. Early on in the game, you might think this is a more realistic take on something like Fallout, or maybe the Metro series. And it certainly does seem that way in the first zone you're in. But upon leaving that zone, you'll very quickly run into more fantastical elements, like the giant robots, or glowing zombie-like monsters, which does make it clear that the science fiction here is just as loose as the Fallout series, just not as quite in your face with it. There is one recurring thing that happens in the game that is frustrating and annoying every time it happens. There are nests of insects and rats in various places. When you get near one of these nests, they spawn dozens of creatures. Sometimes you can actually see the nests and destroy them to stop the creatures spawning. Other times, the nest is nowhere to be found, so your only hope is to just keep bashing the rats, or bees, or what have you, till they stop spawning. This got very old very quick, and was the only part of the game I truly dreaded interacting with. So is Atomfall worth your time and money? Well, if you're a fan of the open-world sci-fi genre, absolutely yes. It's an interesting take on the formula, as it's far less in your face with humor and fantastic science than you get in something like Fallout or The Outer Worlds, while at the same time managing to avoid the ever-present misery that permeates the world of the Metro series. And there is actually some replay value to this, as there's several ways you can actually make it through this game, depending which NPCs you decide to trust and help. As this is not a game where you can do everything on one save file, you will definitely need to play through several times if you're really looking to experience everything that's on offer. It also has a very different feeling to it than other games in this genre, as the game reminds you that this is taking place in England. Every NPC has an English accent, and there is often English slang peppered throughout, the majority of which can be taken from context, but you are playing a character that's supposed to have no memory, so when you look up what a slang word means online, it sort of makes you relate to the character a little bit. Now, of course, this is a very recent release, and is of course selling at full price everywhere, be that $50 on computer or $60 on console. But it's also a relatively niche release, so that makes me think this will drop in price fairly rapidly if you give it a few months. But before waiting to do that, no, it is very much worth the full price tag it's at right now. And, at the time of this review anyway, it is available on Xbox Game Pass, which is exactly how I personally played through it. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.